Scott Bessent takes on the Fed. Not only does he take on the Fed, he takes them apart. He put out a piece, and I thought it was clever, quite frankly. He called it, the Fed's new gain of function monetary policy. Now, remember, gain of function, what got us COVID, messing around with viruses? Overuse of non-standard policies, mission creep, and institutional bloat are threatening the central bank's monetary independence. And he goes through all of the things. They talk about the extra tools in the toolkit that the Fed has taken on since the Great Recession, all of the asset purchases that have taken place, and what it has wrought. And because of this, it actually kind of lent itself as well to having a more of a political take on things, involvement in government, if you will. Again, the Fed extended its liquidity into completely uncharted territory. 2008, 2009, repurposing asset purchase programs as instruments of stimulative monetary policy. And because it kind of sort of worked, if you want to even call it that, I'm trying to get my arms around it. It wasn't just the Fed. They decided, in essence, to kind of take the ball and run with it. I often talk about many of the moral hazards that were taken on during the financial crisis when, in my opinion, quite frankly, what we needed was a big flush. Big flush, and everything would have been just fine. Now, I understand your job. It goes back to the purpose of central banks. There was a book written about this back in the 1870s. It's called Lombard Street, written by Walter Bagot, and he talked about the roles of central banks in helping with liquidity crisis. I get that, but what we ended up with is a situation where the Fed, for lack of a better phrase, they started believing their own bullshit. Again, you've got economists from all of these fancy pants schools, and again, you can take a look at their CVs, their resumes. 99.9% of them that have never had a job in the private sector. Never had a job in the private sector, but man, oh man, they thought, man, we went to these schools. We're smart, kind of like Fredo Corleone. I'm smart and I want respect. And they put all these policies into play, and it was perfect timing during the Obama administration. And you got to take a look again, the Fed and their gain of function here. These were their projections based upon their policies and what they were going to do. The Fed forecast in 2009 that in 2010, GDP would grow by 3%, and then in 2011, it would grow by 4%. Again, expecting that all its new gain of function monetary tools would, and a big fiscal deficit, right, that would stimulate the real economy. Now, well, again, the bounce back in 2010 was 2.8%, but then went down to 1.6%. Now, with a recession like the Great Recession, we should have been booming. We should have been booming. But again, in order to, you want to bake a cake, you want to call our economy a cake. In order to bake a cake, you need more than just sugar. If you know what I mean. The policies of the Obama administration in regards to regulation and the problems they were calling it. And I wrote columns about this. Red Tape Nation didn't help much. And again, the Fed really wasn't going to step in and say anything about that. basically, in his entire piece, talks about the divisions that we've had, the asset inflation we have, how it's been basically, it hasn't been good for average Americans by any stretch of the imagination. And I have to agree. Again, you take a look at the value of our dollar and how it has continued to drop. He writes, the Fed's missteps and policy-making arrogance have placed its credibility at risk, jeopardizing its independence on its core responsibility of monetary policy. The overestimation of the power of oneself or one institution is a fundamentally human trait. In certain cases, it can even be productive, but it is highly problematic for the conduct of monetary policy. The Fed alleges that it needs to be independent, but is it? Or is it captive to the ghosts of its past and its own ego? Monetary policy helped create the housing bubble, and slow recognition by the Fed and the other warning signs worsened the financial crisis. Despite its culpability, the Fed emerged from the financial crisis with more powers than it had going in. Then again, you also talk about its complete missteps when it came to Biden and his COVID stimulus package, and inflation is transitory nonsense. He concludes here about the Fed's heavy intervention in our economy leading to a series of unintended consequences. While these unconventional tools were introduced to address extraordinary circumstances, their efficacy in stimulating economic activity remains unclear. But they have clearly produced severe distributional outcomes across American society, undermined the Fed's credibility, and threatened its independence. At the heart of the Fed's independence lies its credibility and political legitimacy. Both of these tenets have been jeopardized by the Fed's decision to expand its role beyond its traditional mandate and engage in what amounts to gain-of-function monetary policy. These actions have eroded the institution's insulation from political pressure, risking its ability to function as an independent entity. And he says, looking ahead, it is essential the Fed commit to scaling back its distortionary impact on markets. At a minimum, this likely includes the Fed only using and then halting unconventional policies like QE in true emergencies and in coordination with the rest of government. It also likely requires honest, independent, nonpartisan review of the entire institution and all of its activities, including monetary policy, regulatory policy, communications, staffing, and research. Yeah. Again, I popped into my head there, regulatory policy. How many banks went under after Dodd-Frank that the Fed was supposed to be going over? We had Silicon Valley Bank, we had Signature Bank, and Republic Bank. All, the Fed was supposed to be keeping an eye on all of them. Again, very good piece by Scott Bessent. Again, this is something that we've discussed for some time here on the we've pushed for here on the program. Rand Paul, his father Ron Paul, as well, auditing the Fed, reining this entire monstrosity in. Again, most people have no idea. No idea what it does, how it does it, whatever it may be. And again, is that necessarily good for the country? I don't think so. WatchDog on WallStreet.com.